get low. Now 14 minutes before 8 o'clock. It's a beautiful Thursday. You know what time it is. Time for us to get the low down from Julia Hanschel from Lockerbie College. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good today.
Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
I have a leading question
boy.
Yeah.
Is it a test?
No, it's not a test. It's just a really, really leading question.
Okay.
And this is going to be a really interesting show, everybody.
Okay.
What was the moment you realized you were an adult? How old were you?
Wow. I think I'm still waiting to realize.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. Well, I'm not going to ask you on air how old you are. But get this. Teenagers are growing up more slowly than they used to.
There you go.
Yeah?
Yes.
Which
I
means
definitely
that
could see that.
25 is actually the new 18.
Yeah.
Now, go figure.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about today. So, contrary to popular perception, today's teens are actually growing up more slowly than those of us in the past, with 18-year-olds now behaving in a lot of ways like 15-year-olds of days gone by. This is what new research is actually finding. They're published by the Child Development Journal, and it's suggesting that today's teenagers are taking longer to engage in adult activities such as drinking alcohol, working, driving, taking out mortgages, going into debt to get ahead in their careers, making those entrepreneurial career jumps in the deep end of the pool, and even having sex.
Yeah, I will
All of them.
wholeheartedly agree with
Really?
you on that.
Well, there we go.
Absolutely.
So the developmental trajectory of adolescence has slowed down, with teenagers growing up more slowly than they used to, explained Jean Twenge, the professor of psychology at San Diego State University in the U.S., and it led to another study. In terms of adult activities, 18-year-olds now look like 15-year-olds once did. The researchers examined how often teenagers engaged in activities that adults do and that children do not, including driving and dating and working for pay and going out without parents and that kind of thing. And they analysed 7 large surveys of 8.3 million 13 to 19-year-olds. And they did this between 1976 and 2016, so it's a longitudinal study. And the surveys were nationally representative, and they reflected the population of U.S. teenagers in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and geographic region. And in the surveys, the teenagers were asked how they use their time, including their engagement in one or more adult activities, allowing researchers to compare teens in the 2010s to teens in the 2000s, the 1990s, 80s, 70s, and so on. Really, really interesting. And the study found that today's adolescents are less likely than their predecessors to take part in activities typically undertaken by adults, which is kind of interesting because it's really ironic. You give kids adult choices that I didn't have. I'll give you an example in a minute, but they don't make the adult choice. So you say to a child, you know, I'd really love you to go and visit your granny in the home. You know, she just loves to see you and it would make her so happy. And you say that to your 16 or 17-year-old who's driving. What are you going to be told, Carly?
I'm going out with my friends.
Or, no, she's smelly, she's old, she's
Right.
always touching me and patting me and I hate it. You know I hate it. It makes me so depressed.
Yeah.
And you know, I just, you know, old people is not my thing. And you go, okay, you know, like, so what? I'll do it. I'll just do it. Yeah? So although they're having a very reasonable adult choice is being asked of them, they're not making the adult choice. Now, in my day, it was, I need you to visit
It wasn't
your
a choice.
grandfather in St. Joseph Hospital, 94 years old he was. I said, but Mummy, I have homework to do. She says, you need to visit your grandfather. He's
Yeah.
not going to be here forever. You need to visit him. I go, okay, and I go and do it. So I'm basically forced into making that adult choice. And it's those adult choices that you don't want to do, because adults know you don't get to do what you want to do as much as you
Exactly.
get to do what you need to do,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And that actually is what grows you up. Another example would be kids now, when they go away to university, they're back at Christmas and back at half term and back if they sneeze and they have a cold and the weather is not very nice in Canada. They're back.
Yeah.
Okay? When my generation went to England, a flight on British Airways was 5,000 Barbados, which is the equivalent to about 15,000 Barbados now in today's money. And guess what? Your parents put you on that plane and they got you from off of the plane 4 years later.
Yeah.
4 years later. They didn't see you and you didn't see them.
That's
and
right.
guess what?
You wrote letters.
You were expected to write a letter. Yeah?
Uh-huh.
You were expected to write a letter every week. Every week if you wanted those funds to keep coming. So we were forced with a lot more was asked of us that we didn't have a choice in, and we ended up making adult choices. So that's the irony. So let's look at the 25 group. Is 25 the new cutoff point for adulthood? New guidance for psychologists will acknowledge that adolescence now effectively runs up until the age of 25 for the purposes of treating young people. This is psychologists treating young people. So this is a new cutoff point for adulthood. The idea that suddenly at 18 you're an adult just doesn't quite ring true, says child psychologist Laverne Antrobus, who works at London's Tavistock Clinic. My experience of young people is that they still need quite a considerable amount of support and help beyond the age of 18. Child psychologists are being given a new directive, which is that the age range they, as child psychologists, pediatric psychologists, work with is going to be increasing from 0 to 18 to 0 to 25. Can you imagine that? Yeah. Wow. We're becoming much more aware and appreciating development beyond the age of 18. And this lady, Antrobus, says it's a really good initiative, who believes we often rush through childhood wanting our youngsters to achieve key milestones too quickly. How do you feel about that?
Well, in a way, yeah, I can see that definitely happening. But I think, can we just let people be a little bit more mature and not let them
yeah, but you see,
25
maturity
old. I say that with hand quotes, you know.
I know, but you see, are you talking about maturity or wisdom? Because your maturity is a physical thing.
Wisdom, I think.
Wisdom
maybe,
is sort of
I mean.
yeah.
Yeah, really.
Because wisdom comes from all the unpleasant things. Bad things that happened to you, choices that were forced upon you, things you didn't want to do. All of that is wisdom.
Yeah.
Wisdom doesn't come from your mother arranging play dates for you.
Yes.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I know parents now who are worried about the social lives of their 20-somethings. I mean, seriously, at 20-something, you can't arrange your own play dates? I mean, really?
Yes.
I mean, it's quite something. Neuroscience has shown that a young person's cognitive development continues into this later stage up to 25, and that their emotional maturity, their self-image, and their judgment will be affected until the prefrontal cortex of the brain has fully developed, which we know. We know. I mean, why do 14-year-olds do doozy things?
Yeah.
You know, it's because their prefrontal cortex isn't well developed. But alongside brain development, hormonal activity is also continuing well into the early 20s. This lady, Antrobus, says some adolescents may want to stay longer with their families because they need more support during these formative years. And that is important for parents to realize that all young people do not develop at the same pace, which is true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is true.
Yeah.
But is there any danger that we could be breeding a nation of young people reluctant to leave adolescence behind?
But that's exactly it. I was going to say, what does this mean for our population in the future?
Well, what's kind of interesting,
right now.
exactly, is this second field of thought. You know, here comes Mr. Tough Love, this guy called Frank Faridy. He's a professor of sociology at the University of Kent. He says that we have infantilized young people, and this has led to a growing number of young men and women in their late 20s still living at home. Often it's claimed it's for economic reasons, but actually it's not really for that, he says. There is a loss of the aspiration for independence and striking out on your own. When he went to university, it would have been a social death to have been seen with your parents, whereas now it's the norm. But if they're living at home, could there be other reasons? Is it too comfortable?
Yeah.
Are you paying bills at home?
Oh, I'm not living at home.
No, I know, but I mean, that's sort of...
No, but no,
you know,
most people
open
probably
question.
are not.
Most people are probably
Probably
not.
not.
But that goes with
So
the whole
they can use their
millennial
money
issue.
to buy cell phones
To buy stuff.
instead, and buy
you know?
things
To buy
instead
things.
of-
And you know what?
Yes.
They still didn't ask their parents to borrow money. Because they
Exactly.
spend their own money and then they think they still have dibs on their parents' money.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting because it enters into the millennial issue
Yep.
of there just not being the job opportunities for the amount of graduates who are actually turning out.
Yep.
And the graduates who are turning out are not risk takers. They're not accustomed to a world in which they have to wade through a whole lot of awful stuff before they get to the good stuff. And they're not accustomed to enduring the awful stuff as a means to an end to get to the good stuff.
Exactly.
So there's, oh my gosh, it's a really, really interesting time in which we live.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a lot of parents who have been so kind to their kids. And I ask myself, is this kindness going to kill their kids' ability to jump out of the nest? I think to a large extent it does. So I guess I'll go back to the words of my mum, who said, you'll find one day that your mother is right. And she said, balance. You need to have a balance. Yeah. So if there's one bit of advice I could give to parents, think carefully when your child tells you no. And think carefully whether you should actually be telling your child no. So when you ask your child to do something reasonable, that if they say yes, they're making an adult choice, and no, they're making a child choice, maybe you need to stretch their no and help them see why it should be a yes.
Yeah.
And when you in yourself are about to say yes, you know, can I borrow money from you? I'm short this month. Okay, but I'll put it on your bill. No. You're not a bank. You need to say the word no, because your children are going to mature through the no's they hear from you, not through the yeses.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So I have, how many minutes do I have left to give my pearls of wisdom?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Here we go. Painful things your 20-somethings must do to grow up.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah?
Let's hear.
Deleting phone numbers of people you're very interested in dating, but who are just never
Not
going to be
interested
interested in you in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Delete those numbers. Okay? Moving somewhere where there's more opportunity for you professionally, but where you are an absolute stranger and have no comfort zone.
Oh, wow.
Good
That's
one,
a good
huh?
one. Yes, that is.
Accepting that you cannot party the way you used to.
I'm still trying.
Your sleep has become your most precious commodity. Realizing that some people are making the transition from crazy kid who parties a little too much to a person who has a serious problem with drinking or drugs. And that there may be nothing you can do to help them. Yeah? Okay, here we go. Seeing that for some people, money and how you relate to it is going to make a huge difference in social groups and who is friends with whom. Yeah? While you can make the effort to not care about money in the lives of your own group, some people are just going to become hung up on what it means socially. Yeah? Accepting that you may not have the job or the apartment or the lifestyle that you imagined you would have at your age. So you know what? If you can only afford a cheap apartment, take that cheap apartment.
Start
you know why?
there.
It's your own.
Exactly.
It's your own. Yeah? Living with debt. How do you like them apples? Yeah? Living with debt makes you an adult. Accepting that sometimes your parents really were right about things. Oh, isn't that just gives you indigestion, doesn't it? Looking back on decisions you've made over the years and feeling like there were clear forks in the road where you took the wrong direction, but which you can never really loop back around to find again. And living with the person you have decided to become, even if that means having to start from square one at 25 years old, even if that means you're going to be a little bit behind for a long time, even if none of us really know what that means to be behind.
Yeah.
Really?
Love